Hello, and you join us just over an hour before the start of play on day three of this first test match between England and Pakistan. Um, what a woeful day for England, firstly. You join us as England are staring into the barrel of defeat of this game. And we will discuss that in this episode with more as well. But for now, Jacob will bring us our overview of the day, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so Pakistan began yesterday batting with Babar Azam and the immovable force that was Shan Masood at the crease. Babar Azam failed to add his overnight total before Jimmy Anderson threw a bit of a tempter up there. He went for a big cover drive, his trademark shot, and nicked it to second slip. Then Shafiq came in. I can't remember his first name. Asad Shafiq came in and didn't really hang around long. Only 32 balls before he was caught by Stokes off Broad for 7, which brought Mohammad Rizwan to the crease. He never really settled either, lasting only 61 balls for 9 runs before being caught behind off the bowling of Chris Wokes. However, this brought Shadab Khan to the crease. Shadab Khan, the all-rounder in the Pakistan side, and he did his job. He came in, he provided impetus, he scored quickly, a strike rate of 59 in the end, but I imagine it was much higher than that in the beginning of his innings. It was the second highest strike rate of the Pakistani innings behind Babar Azam, who notoriously scores runs quite quickly. 45 for Shadab off 113 before he finally went for one big shot too many, tried to smack Dom Bess over the top and just hit it straight up and got caught by Joe Root on 45. But he and Shan Masood added over 100 runs to the partnership. I can tell you how many they did actually. It was 105 run partnership between those two. Which really stalled England's momentum. This was the notorious hour after lunch. England were woeful in the field. They didn't stop quick singles being taken by these two, who ran almost scandalously. They pinched singles everywhere. England couldn't seem to hit the stumps in the field. Missed chances. Jos Buttler had another terrible day. He dropped another catch and missed a run out by chucking it about 7 yards wide of both Stuart Broad and the stumps. So really poor day for him. Then Yasir Shah came to the crease, lasted a solid 26 balls, only made 5 runs, and then was trapped in front by Archer. Mohammad Abbas was then caught behind off Archer off the next ball. So not many runs for him. And then Shan Masood was the next to go with Shaheen Afridi at the crease with him. Shan Masood realised there wasn't really much time left, kicked his scoring up a notch, had a couple of nice slogs, a couple of huge sixes. One of them was unbelievable. It was massive. Anyway, he reached a score of 156, his maiden test 150, his third consecutive test 100, joining Pakistani greats like Yunus Khan and I think not Waqar Yunus, he was a bowler, but
Misbah Haq as well.
Misbah Haq, yeah. To score 3 consecutive centuries in test matches, and he's the first one to do it, scoring any of those centuries against England. So really big achievement for him. He also became one of only 5 all openers to score a century in English conditions, those being KL Rahul, him, Chris Rogers. I did remember it. And 2 others. Yeah. But there was only 5 of them. He did really well. And then it was Shaheen Shah Afridi who got to be the man not out, as Naseem Shah fell for naught.
Yeah.
He edged off his glove. He caught the thumb of his glove on the ball and got caught behind off Butler. However, I do need to make a small correction. I was looking in the wrong column. Asad Shafiq faced 22 balls in 32 minutes, not 32 balls in 22 minutes. And Mohammad Rizwan faced 41 balls. Anyway, we now move on to England's first innings. I don't think I need to talk about the number of balls faced. So Rory Burns and Dom Sibley opened the batting. We were all quite keen to see what happened. Rory Burns and neither Burns nor Sibley had faced much left-handed pace bowling, especially of the class of Shaheen Shah Afridi. And then Sibley, obviously, with Mohammad Abbas, who nibbles the ball back in, and that's somewhere Sibley's looked a bit uncertain before. So, Burns, having never faced really high-class left-arm pace before, steps way across his stumps, tries to withdraw his leg, and gets caught LBW. After whipping one off his legs for 4, he then fell for 4 after 4 balls in 4 minutes with 1-4.
Yeah.
So that was not good. Things only got worse as Dom Sibley predictably walked across his crease. Mohammad Abbas nipped one back in, and he was caught stone dead LBW. It was absolutely plumb. That brought Ben Stokes to the crease, and he and Root were together, and we all thought, oh, maybe they can stop the skid. Ben Stokes managed 7 balls before being bowled by a beauty by Mohammad Abbas. Complete bail trimmer, plugging the podcast, obviously, for us. He hit the top of off. It was fantastic.
Perfect.
Completely skittled the stumps. So that was Ben Stokes gone. Root and Pope then added a little bit to the score. After Stokes went, they added another 50 runs. So as the 50 partnership came up, Root tried to cut away a ball from Yasir Shah, the leg spinner, which was just too full, got a little top edge on it, and Mohammad Rizwan, unlike Just Butler, made no mistake and caught the damn ball behind the stump, leaving the England captain dismissed on 14. Then Butler came to the crease and played very watchfully, lasted well through to the close. He's going to start this morning with 15 runs off 27 balls. But if there was such a star, it was Ollie Pope. Yeah. He is 46 not out off 67 balls, strike rate of 68.6. He's a class player. He's hopefully, kiss of death. We said this about his 100 when he got out on 92, but he should hopefully get his 50 tomorrow. Yeah. Today, sorry. We should, hopefully he can kick on and get a bit of a century. 100 from him would be really useful. But he looked like he was playing on a completely different pitch to the rest of the England players. Couple of nervy shots, but mostly really well dealt with. Couple of very nice drives, and a lovely battle to see between him and Naseem Shah, who are both future stars of their countries and will be playing against each other for a long time. So that's the roundup of the day. Pretty pathetic from England's point of view.
Very poor from England.
Bit of a damp squeal of an innings, but England really need to pull it together, and basically what they need ultimately is probably a 100 from Pope, a 50 from Butler, and then a Stuart Broad innings again of 50 or 60, and then
they just need
a few contributions from elsewhere, and then they might be in the game.
They need to get close to Pakistan's total. I don't see them passing it, by any great margin. It's going to be hard for them just to get close, actually. I think they'll avoid the follow-on, and then it's just a matter of how many runs they can make up between the follow-on point and where Pakistan's innings lead is. But it's not looking hopeful.
No, not at all, really. It's not good for England at the moment.
Yeah, very poor. It was really poor. It was just a poor.
It was just very bad.
There's no other way to describe it.
I actually have a debate to open up with.
Oh,
And this is a debate which I've been thinking about for a while, and then I saw brought up on the BBC Test match commentary and thought, maybe it's time to talk about this. Is it time to, instead of expanding the Fab Four to the Fab Five by adding Babar Azam, is it time to take Joe Root out and keep the Fab Four as Kohli, Smith, Williamson, Azam?
I don't think it's time to take Root out just yet, but I would say that Root is by far number 5 in that group of 5, and number 4 if you just count the original 4. Kohli, Smith, Williamson, and now Babar Azam as well have all gone on. They've justified the potential they had when they were just starting out as players. And they have gone on and done really good things. Their averages have stayed up. Their averages have just got better over time.
Although Kohli's has dropped a bit now, hasn't he? He's had a bit of bad form over the last sort of year.
Yeah.
But not as long as Root since he took on the captaincy. His form has decreased kind of exponentially. And
maybe the question isn't take Root out of the Fab Four, is give the captaincy to someone else.
But who? Because Ben Stokes didn't do a great job in the West Indies tour, and then Butler, vice captain, but kind of fighting for a place in the side.
Oh yeah, you want someone who's guaranteed in the side to.
Who do you give it to? You can't give it to any of the pace bowlers because they can be rested at any time.
Yeah, that's true.
Ollie Pope's too young.
The rest of the team is just too young.
Yeah, so
it's to anyone.
It's kind of Root or Stokes, and if you're going to trust Stokes, especially when you've seen the effect that captaincy has on England's batting. Yeah. Stokes in the form of his life, probably also a man challenging Joe Root's place in that Fab Four.
Yeah.
Do you really want to be giving him the captaincy and saying, don't focus on your batting so much, try and be a captain?
Yeah, it's true. Oh.
Then he's got a captain, he's got a bat, he's got a bowl, he's got a field.
Yeah,
Joe Root is kind of the only man at the moment. I think
he's the only one that can be captain, but it is having an effect on his game. Yeah,
in terms of what we see from this England team, I think Ollie Pope could be a candidate to move up the order and be a future captain, just based on how he's looking there, but not for a long time.
Oh yeah,
or Dom Sibley if he stays consistent and sorts out this technical issue of the ball nipping back in.
Let me bring up Joe Root's previous Test innings scores.
Because he scored that double hundred in New Zealand, but he didn't really make a big, and that was on an absolute road. Yeah, nothing but balls there. And then he hasn't really made much in the way of big scores, other than that for a bit. So
his average.
Check out Kohli's as well.
I'll bring up Kohli's as well, but Root's average is 48. And he's averaging over 50 in ODI and Test cricket.
Is that his career average or is it average this year?
No, his career average in Test is 48.
Yeah, but that is because he was averaging 50 odd.
Yeah.
At the end of his career. Have a look at his. You can find on like Crick Info or Crick Stats his annual average.
Let me have a look for that.
But yeah, just while you do that, it's difficult for Joe Root because of the captaincy, but we have to start admitting that his form has suffered, and that maybe he's not at the moment kind of on the same level as guys like Smith and Kohli, even Williamson. Williamson's in great form and
right. His average by year. His average in 2019 was the lowest of his career. No, the second lowest of his career. It was 37, but it's actually gone up this year, and it's gone up to 42. But obviously, he's played less matches this year than he has last year.
Still, averaging 37 for Joe Root. Small sample size, but Dom Sibley's averaging higher.
Yeah, he played less. He played less matches. He played 7 matches in 2014, but that was arguably the best year of his career. He averaged 97 in 2014.
So
93 in his first year in 2012, but that's because he played one match and made 93. That's why. Um,
I think it'll probably be the case that, similar to Alistair Cook,
yeah,
he's got to hang on for a bit, and then when he's relieved of the captaincy,
yeah.
it might look a bit like a weight's come off his shoulder and he can start scoring again.
But then by that point, he's reaching the end of his career, and it's just all the years that he's missed by this point, you know.
Yeah, which is sad.
Yeah,
But
it is really sad.
we'll have to see how it goes.
I mean, he averaged 60 in 2015. It's probably the most complete year of his career.
Yeah.
I scored 182 not out then. But he still made 226 last year. That was his high score last year. But that was the one in New Zealand.
It really seemed like a one-off.
Yeah.
He had that thing in the Ashes of getting to 50 and then not getting past it.
It's always been, his conversion rate has always been a question.
And then he had that double hundred in New Zealand on a pitch where, to be honest, Stuart Broad probably could have got a double hundred if he'd really applied himself.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot in it, so it's not looking great for Root in terms of his batting form. Like, he's a fine captain, and I think people were talking about his mediocre captaincy. I think he's actually been a pretty good captain, and that his win-loss record is pretty decent, other than, losing 2 Ashes series. But he didn't actually lose the last one, he drew it.
Right, so I've got Virat Kohli off as well. His average last year was 68. So already there's even though he's probably the second weakest of that group, he's still...
Has he dropped off this year a bit?
He's only played four innings this year, with an average of 9.
Yeah, I knew I'd seen him recently, and he hadn't got a big score, and he looked dodgy. And
I mean, he's scored 38 runs this year.
So it's a bit of a dark patch for Kohli as well. But he's coming off a year where his form has been on it, and Joe Root's coming off a year where his form has been kind of steadily declining.
Yeah, I mean, last year was probably the second worst year of his career for Joe Root, stats wise. His captaincy is pretty good. He's grown into that. But what people's hope was that he'd grow into both the captaincy, and at the same time, it would just be a short-term decline in his form just because of the captaincy, and he'd be back up when he got used to the captaincy. But that hasn't happened.
Take Kohli as the example. He's a man who's taking the captaincy like a duck to water. He loves. You see him on the field, and he's divisive, but he's extremely emotive and passionate, and really takes pride in leading his team from the front and being the man who gets the big runs.
Yeah.
And we kind of haven't had that with Root.
Oh no, yeah.
Not that it's a fault in him. He's not like saying that he doesn't want to do it anymore. He just isn't like that. And it's not working, and there's some difficult decisions for him in the next couple of years, probably.
Right. I've actually managed to find a way to separate them by their average after they become captain.
Okay.
And actually that's the real that's the one where we get the sort of insight. Virat Kohli's played 55 matches as captain. Yeah, so it's quite a sizable chunk. And his average as captain is 61. And then you contrast that. Joe Root has played 42 matches as captain, so it's still quite a lot. Pretty similar. And his average is 42. 42.5, so 40.
Which is not a bad average. Like, he's not a terrible player. He's a world-class player.
It's just not where it was. And given the promise that was there at the start of his career, it's not the same.
When you're having years where you're averaging in the 90s, a step down to 40, it kind of... We know he's a world-class player, but on that average, he's kind of gone down into the good player bracket rather than the truly great player.
Oh,
bracket.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And if he'd have kept up that form, we'd be looking, judging on the number of runs he scored and stuff, we'd be looking at another Alistair Cook. He could be challenging that record.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's kind of dropped off a bit of a small cliff.
I mean, if you just look at runs scored aggregate, since I become captain, Kohli. I mean, he's had a few more innings than Joe Root, but he scored almost over 2,000 runs more than Joe Root. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
and
unfortunate.
and we discussed this a couple of episodes ago as well, where we said that, well, this is this a is this a sign of a terminal decline? And I think you said that he's still his class is there. It's just the form at the moment. But given he hasn't justified himself, that the highest score he's made this year is 68, and before that, it's very hard to think of truly great innings that he's played. Where it's mattered, especially since he became captain.
Yeah, because ultimately the New Zealand one, that was in a series that we'd
Yeah.
lost in a game. Did we win that game or were we losing it?
I think we were losing it.
I think it's a game we were losing
Yeah.
in a series we'd lost. He doesn't. He's not been producing when it matters, and that's unfortunate for him. And he seems to. It's one of those things which you don't see often in players of his caliber. It's not that he's getting done by great balls all the time. He's kind of finding ways to get out.
Oh yeah.
And he's had a couple of run outs where he's been barbecued or he's barbecued someone or he's just he should have pounced on and he's sliced it to a catcher or something. The ball yesterday is a perfect example. Any player of his class would look at that and go, no, that's too full to cut, and he's cut it and edged it straight to the keeper. And it's those momentary lapses in judgment which he's struggling with.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it is just it seems to be the shots and the demeanor of a player under pressure. He's obviously under pressure. Obviously you've got the captaincy pressure, but also Joe Root is fundamentally. I mean, he has so much promise, and he has a potential to be such a great player for England. But also, he will know. I mean, he pushes himself hard as well, so he will know that this isn't good enough. And so it's not just the external pressure; it's the internal pressure as well that he will put on himself. That I need to make a big score. But he's just trying too hard to make that big score, and he's forgotten what makes him a great player.
And that fragility under pressure has
Yeah.
kind of translated into the team. That's the
Oh,
problem.
yeah.
If we've looked at the first innings batting, particularly the first innings after we've bowled first and the team's put up a good score,
Yeah.
or a team's put up any score, to be honest. When Australia put up 200 or we got bowled out for 67 at
Yeah.
Headingley. We won that game thanks to miracles and sorcery and shenanigans. But other than that, it's that sort of psyche that I'm not saying he's introduced it to the team, but it's kind of translated from him into the team of when they get under a bit of scoreboard pressure, they collapse instantly.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we will have a stat, because I'm going to look it up tonight. We will have a stat about under Joe Root's captaincy, how many times we've collapsed and made low scores like this, and possibly comparing it to previous captaincies.
Yeah.
Because it's been a problem with England for a while.
Oh
now.
yeah, it really has.
And it's clearly not a coaching thing because it's transcended different coaches.
It's not a coaching thing. So is it a mentality thing? Because what we've ascribed it to in the past, and what we still ascribe it to, is that there's this mentality that they have where they can't play under pressure. As soon as there's a slightest hint of pressure, that's it. Everything goes out the window. Everything they know goes out the window, and they just play rash shots, or they do silly things. Because a lot of the runouts, a lot of the wickets that fall are because of silly mistakes. Or we can sit here and say that they're mistakes that you wouldn't think that a high level batsman would make.
Those sort of mistakes we would make.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know if it's an entire inability to play under pressure, because individually they can all, we saw with Joss Butler. He plays well under pressure. It's just that collective team pressure which bothers them, and also first test matches of series for some reason. Because as we saw in South Africa was probably the starkest example of this recently. First test match, destroyed. completely beaten by South Africa. It was something like 200-run defeat, wasn't it? It was big.
It was a huge defeat.
And then they went out and made nearly 500 the next Test match, and you're like, where was that?
They seem to kick into gear, but at the same time, as I said yesterday, you can't rely on losing the first test of a series and then winning the rest. And you can rely on it in South Africa. You can rely on it against the West Indies or Pakistan. Well, we'll see if they can rely on it against Pakistan.
Probably not against Pakistan.
You can, but you can't rely on it when you go to Australia.
Yeah,
everyone is breathing down your neck.
You don't want to get too complacent about it.
Exactly.
But I think
if they lose in Brisbane at the start of the next tour, that's it.
Well, I'm not sure, because particularly in Ashes series, it's a 5-test series.
Yeah.
So actually, England, even though they lost heavily in the first test of the last Ashes series, if one test hadn't been drawn because of rain, they could have won, and they were in the position to win that test.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of tricky thing. It matters more in 3-test series like this against strong opposition like this, but it's not panic stations right now.
Yeah, because that was the key question I was going to ask you: is it time to panic for England now?
No, in this game, possibly. In this series, no. It's not panic stations, because England do this. They lose the first test of the series, and we don't want to get complacent about it and go, oh, they lose the first, but then they'll just win the rest. Pakistan are seriously good, and we'll come on.
They are. They are. They're a step up from the West Indies.
High class.
Yeah.
But judging by history, England will do this. They'll get hammered in this first test. I'd almost be worried if they didn't. And then they should, in theory, and based on past experience. Now, I know just because it happened before doesn't mean it'll happen again, and that's what we have to be careful of. But based on the trend, they should come back stronger in the next test and put up more of a fight, and then stronger again in the next test. And we'll see that. Because I think also, if you look at the side at the moment, we have to give them a bit of credit in that, because it's such a young side, with Sibley and Burns and Crawley when he comes back, and then Pope and stuff, what you have to look at is these series where they've lost heavily the first game, South Africa, West Indies, this one.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't lost it yet, but it looks like they're going to. South Africa was probably the first time any of those young guys had played test matches overseas, other than Burns. He played in the West Indies. But a lot of these young guys hadn't played overseas. They'd never been bowled at by Vernon Philander and Kagito Rabada and all that. They hadn't seen that before. The West Indies, Sibley, Pope, Crawley, all these guys, they'd not seen Kemar Roach and Jason Holder and Shannon Gabriel before. They hadn't played against them. And they, especially now with such a young side as Pakistan, they've definitely never played against Shaheen Afridi, Naseem Shah, these guys, because they just haven't had the opportunity. And they learn fast, seemingly. And
they do. Well, this is
quickly.
One point you made in the overview was that this is one of the first times that Rory Byrne has faced left-arm pace.
And, of this class, I imagine he's faced it in.
Of course.
But I don't think he ever got to face Mitchell Starc in the Ashes. And Dom Sibley wasn't in the Ashes, so definitely didn't.
And so, as we know, Rory Burns, but also now Dom Sibley, as we know, they learn very quickly, and they can rectify they can change things with their technique, especially because they're very young players. They're able to change their technique very easily. So, obviously it's not panic stations for them, because I imagine that they will, even now, they'll go away to the nets and they will practice against left arm pace, or they will work out the coaches will sit down with them and say, when you face a left arm pacer, especially with this class, this is what you do, this is how you defend against them, this is how you play their shots. And so I think that Rory Burns especially will learn from that, because he's a very quick learner. So for the next test, they should be all right.
And there's loads of resources available to them.
Yeah.
I'm sure he doesn't want to help his homeland fall to England, but talk to Wasim Akram.
Yeah.
one of the best left-arm pacers in history. He knows what he's doing. He knows what to do. Even just watch tapes of him, watch his stuff. Naseem Shah, pretty similar bowler in what he does with the ball.
Naseem Shah's action.
Not Naseem Shah, Shaheen Afridi, sorry. Yeah. Naseem Shah's the right armour.
He is,
But yeah, we'll come on to those guys in a minute. But also, remember at the beginning of the West Indies series, post-South Africa, we were talking all about how Dom Sibley gets caught down the leg side. He can't leave the ball on his ribs. He fixed that. He's fixed it now. He wasn't caught down the leg side at all.
And then there was we also had the criticisms of him facing the short ball as well, and he sorted them out as well.
So it's just a small technical adjustment. Dom Sibley, obviously, don't change. He's a great player, but he has to be aware that he does step across the stumps a lot, and he is strong off his legs. But that ball that starts outside off and nips back into the legs, that's what he has to be careful of. And when you have a guy like Mohamed Abbas, who is arguably the best in the world at that particular ball, that's what he does. Not very fast, but just on a line and length, and then nips back in. You've got to adjust to that. Rory Burns the same. Left arm pace, it's a different angle. You can't drag your foot across as much. So it's stuff like that.
So England's batting performance was pretty woeful, as we've said. And we've spoken about how Rory Burns and Dom Sibley and some of the other young players in the team can go out and sort of sort that out and rectify things with their technique. But I mean, we spoke a bit about Root, but we spoke a lot about the issues there. But we didn't say how can Joe Root, what can he do now to sort this out? Because it is definitely it's not just a short-term drop in form now. This is a terminal thing at this point.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing he can do is just try and have training sessions or net sessions when he's thinking, right, forget that you're captain. Just bat. Yeah. Just go in the net, do what you love, bat. And obviously it's really hard because you've got to think, what about captaincy and tactics and that. And it's a hard mindset to change out of. And especially when he's not given time by his openers, when he's in at 4 for 1, he hasn't had that time to think and change the mindset. But at some point, hopefully the openers will give him time. Then he can kind of use that time in the dressing room to just go, right, I'm not captain anymore. It's just time for batting. That's what we got to do.
I really do think that it is just a mental thing of him being captain. And if he can sit down with someone and talk about that properly, and just find a way for him to disassociate the captaincy from himself when he bats, because he doesn't need, when he's in the field, obviously then he needs to be captain because that's when he has to make the decisions. But when you're batting, when you're out in the middle, it's just you and the guy on the other side. So if you don't need to be captain then, because you're both equal partners in that. And I think if he can disassociate himself there,
But it's hard, and it's really a difficult thing to do. Everyone, to some extent, struggles with it if they're not someone like Kohli who really enjoys the captaincy.
Oh, he loves it.
Kohli loves it, and that kind of adds to him. Whereas a lot of people it takes away, and then that's the difficult situation. But let's turn now from England's woeful performances. We haven't really talked about their bowling. It was quite poor.
It was.
There were decisions made at the wrong times.
I think the main thing, we'll move on.
I want to cover this quickly.
Yeah. So we'll just a quick thing with that is it was that hour after lunch, as you said. It was.
We're playing 2 spinners straight after lunch.
Oh, it was
Everyone runs.
They were just trying to they were trying to restrict the scoring rate. They thought that there's only a few overs left, or there's not much time left before the new ball is available, the second new ball. So let's just play spinners to speed that up. But when you had Pakistan on the ropes with your pace attack, carry on using your pace attack. Especially after lunch when they're gonna be rested. It wasn't the right decision.
Continuing my campaign, Dom Bess was hard done by, I felt, because Butler's mistakes meant that Bess should have had at least 3 wickets. If you count both of those chances on Shan Masood as one chance, because it would have been one wicket. But yeah, he should have had 3 wickets. Also, that would have completely changed the complexion of the game if Shan Masood had gone on 45.
Oh yeah.
Because so Butler, this is no longer a case of his batting's been a bit poor, his keeping hasn't been the best. This is him costing England the game, his stuff, and that's a problem. So that's both my campaigns out the way. Yay Best, boo Butler, yay folk.
I do think that Butler still gets. He still deserves the chances that he's got.
Well, last time was meant to be his last chance, and then he kind of got it together, and now that was his last batting chance, and now his keeping's falling apart.
Yeah, but his keeping's been great in the West Indies series. His
keeping's been great over the last.
He's been a brilliant
last years. So he's missed as many chances in this match as he has in the last 2 years.
Yeah, but it could. It could just be, it's just he just having a bad couple of days.
Yeah, but they're big, costly chances.
Let's see how he does batting before we make any.
Yeah, and then Archer got 3 wickets, bowled pretty well, was under-bowled at times, but was bowling slow, really slow. He was 81, 82 miles an hour.
He did say afterwards, that Old Trafford pitch wasn't and isn't a pitch that rewards pace, or he thought that it wasn't when he so he slowed the pace down.
I'm not sure about that.
We did see Naseem Shah afterwards getting up to 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Archer did, it wasn't that he didn't care. He said that in his judgment, he thought it would be better if he bowled, if he slowed his pace down a bit.
That's fair enough, and it seems to have worked. And I don't necessarily jump on the whole thing of, Jofra's not bowling as fast as he can because he's not bothered today. Like, he has a reason.
Yeah.
But you've got enough bowlers.
Yeah.
You've got the greatest bowlers of all time at 83, 84 miles an hour who can swing it around and move it on a pitch like that. Just maybe a couple of overs.
Yeah.
You can slow yourself down to bowl what you think the pitch needs, but at some point you just need to put the wind up them a bit and have a 3 or 4 over spell where you steam in and bowl fast.
I would like to see, and I think he probably will do it in the next innings when the pitch has deteriorated a bit as well, is bowl some serious pace, but also I'd like to see him bowl some short balls, just
that's what he's in the team for. And he actually, I disagree with you on the short balls. I think he started to overuse them a bit. He's got a very good surprise bouncer, and he started doing them 3-4 balls in a row, and that was overused. And you saw Shan Masood, the first one, that was a bit quick. The second, third, and fourth, gone. Thanks. You're just too predictable. So, I'm not saying Archer's not turning up or not putting in the effort. He's a good bowler. And actually, we talk about how great Shaheen Shah Afridi is. Jofra Archer has played the same number of matches and taken 4 more wickets. He's a good bowler. He's a very promising bowler.
Again, it's just a question, and this is one that's played England since last summer, is how to best use him. And it's the same question. Actually, it's the same question with Dom Bess. Both those 2 players are 2 very promising young players who in Jofra's case, who have done great things for England, and Dom Bess, who can do. But it's just how they're going to be managed by the team. And if Jofra can figure out a way to manage them, then they'll be all right.
Jofra's been managed better since New Zealand.
Yeah.
And he's actually been managed really well. And I like this. My worry was that he'd been told, don't bowl fast today, just come in and bowl bowl a bit within yourself, save yourself. That wasn't the case. What they've done is they've given him judgment and free rein and said, do what you think for this pitch. And it's great to see him, we know he's a clever and good bowler, but it's very good to see him assessing the pitch like that.
Oh, yeah.
And going, I can bowl 95 miles an hour, but if I want to take wickets on this pitch, maybe I have to bowl 85.
Yeah.
But that's really good to see. But I would have also liked to see just one spell, maybe 2. I would like to see him bowl a bit more, maybe 1 spell more, and just have that spell be, 3 overs, intimidate them. 95 miles an hour, hard, hit the pitch, get it up there, or on a length and just whack it in the ribs, whack it on the toes,
just be
Yorkers, bouncers,
yeah,
intimidate them and make them worried about where they're going to play, especially, against the tail. So that would be nice. But
because I think the one last thing is that I think there does need to be a little bit more aggression from England in the next innings, because what's happened is, I mean, Pakistan have been great. Their batting has been brilliant. Obviously, their bowling has been spectacular. But in their first innings, it was just as much that their batting was great as it was that England gifted them runs.
Yeah.
And if there was more aggression, I think they just need to be a little bit more assertive. But
we've got about 20 minutes left, and we
on,
haven't covered Pakistan nearly enough, because
we need to talk about their bowling.
As England fans, sorry, not players, we've talked about the England players and how poor it was today and stuff like that. But we need to give credit to Pakistan.
Oh,
they are a high-class team, fantastic team, and their bowling attack is phenomenal. It is up there.
It is one of the best pace bowling attacks in the world.
Statistically, I think it's actually like fifth in the rankings. It's like West Indies. I think it's like West Indies, India, Australia, Pakistan, us, maybe. So it's like fourth. I think it should be a bit higher than that. I think the West Indies pace attack should go down those rankings a bit, because they're good. They're very good, but they're not as high class as Pakistan is.
Yeah, Pakistan. There's some serious quality there, and also Shaheen Shah Afridi and Naseem Shah have a combined age of 37,
and Jimmy's 38.
So
it's a pace attack for longevity as well. And I don't know. I mean, I say I don't know what the state of young Pakistani bowling is like. We're seeing it in front of us, but you have guys like Mohammad Abbas and Yasir Shah, who are not old, but getting older. And so I think they probably, as Pakistan always do, have another fantastic pace bowler off the rank. But the two they've got at the moment in the young players, the Shaheen Shah Afridi and Naseem Shah, fantastic players.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
So good.
I watched a bit of Shaheen's bowling, especially against Joe Root. There's Joe Root, off form, but world-class player. He had him in all sorts of trouble.
He had him reviewing at one stage.
It was zipping around. It was, Joe Root had a couple of leaves and they swung in and just missed the off stump. It wasn't actually as quick as Naseem Shah, but it was an exciting, intimidating spell of bowling with the ball moving around and doing lows. He's got great control of it. And Shaheen Shah Afridi is a fantastic player.
And then Naseem Shah is just that action.
Raw pace.
It's pace, and his action is amazing. It's so natural.
Obviously, he needs to tune it up a bit. He needs to kind of get a bit tighter. He's given away a few runs. Ollie Pope actually played him really well. But he had some good shots off him.
I think he needs to be tighter, but obviously part of that is down to the fact that he has a very naturally swingy action. So it's going to be a little bit looser with the lines, but it's still it's an amazing action, and you can tell that it doesn't take too much of a toll on his body because of how natural it is. So hopefully it means that he will, as he goes on, he'll be able to, as long as he's managed right by the Pakistan team, he'll be able to avoid the sort of injuries that plague fast bowlers. And it means that he'll be able to play as many matches as possible. But it's such a good action, and
he's a great bowler. He's a really classy, raw, talented bowler. You've got to have a certain degree of skill to be the youngest player ever to take a Test hat trick. That I've seen it. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's really, really quick and just it's a nice bowling style to watch.
Yeah.
So
it really is.
Also Pakistan,
we got Mohammad Abbas as well with that the ball of the match.
Vernon Philander-esque line and length.
Straight on the seam, bounced up. Amazing.
He's very good at that. Very good at that. Yeah. And it's nice to see. It's nice to see if if we weren't England fans, it would be
Yeah.
joy to watch.
Oh yeah,
It still
definitely.
is, but there's a slight tinge of,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
this is good for us. But it's a real joy to watch them. And, every cricket fan, I don't want to get, we shouldn't get too involved in the national team. Like, we're fans, we want them to
Oh
win.
yeah.
We
But
love it
no,
when they
but,
succeed, and
but
we're
but we
passionate.
enjoy watching
But, but
every.
even if they're getting trounced, if we're
Yeah.
watching good cricket, we've got to
Oh,
admire
then,
that.
yeah. It's
Unless
like
it's the Australians. If it's the Australians,
oh
no.
then no no. Steve,
No.
Steve Smith could make 500 not out, and we would not be happy.
Yeah, we secretly like watch it over and over and be like, this is great. But in front of everyone, we're like, nah, he's not that good.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
He's lucky.
Yeah. Definitely that.
But yeah,
But
it's great from Pakistan. We were
yeah.
surprised at the toss when they picked two leg spinners. That looks to be the right call. Pitch is dry. It's turning. England, this England team haven't had a lot of, well, outside of Root and Stokes and so on, but the young guys haven't had a lot of experience against high-class leg spin,
Yeah.
which
It's going
is,
to be interesting to see what Yasir Shah can do.
especially if the openers stay in, Sibley
Yeah.
and Burns have both had their problems against spin.
Yeah.
Watching, one thing at a time, stay past a new ball.
Yeah. I mean, especially, I think it's because it's just a problem endemic to English openers and English batsmen as a whole, because of the fact that, as we said before, in our county structure, in the domestic structure, leg spin doesn't usually feature as a big part. And there's loads of reasons for that, and they do need to be addressed. But the fact is that these players will not have faced as much high quality leg spin as players in other countries, especially Australians, or even players in India or Pakistan. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they react to leg spin.
Yeah, I'm in favour in terms of the way they manage the conditions in the county championship. I'm in favour of making them relatively spin friendly,
Yeah,
because we need to encourage good spinners into our team.
we do,
And
but
then,
then obviously then you've also got the other consideration of, well, we need to keep our pace bowling attack as good as it is at the moment.
yes, but then both the batsmen and the pace bowlers learn to perform their art in
Yeah,
conditions which aren't very
yeah,
friendly to them.
true. That's true.
And then, because actually the problem for English bowlers has always been, you get this lavish swing with the Duke's ball in the county championship, and then you go to Australia and it's a road and the kookaburra's dead,
Yeah,
and there's just nothing in it, and then you have problems. So I think that would encourage more pace and would also encourage better spinners, where outside of England, most countries have to some extent spin-friendly conditions.
yeah,
Australia aren't known for spin friendliness, but they do get that bounce and the dryness which helps the spin. It's not going to turn prodigiously unless you're Nathan Lyon and you have voodoo magic. But other than that, you can get a lot of bounce and nick, and yeah, I'm in favour of quite spin. Maybe it's just me as a spinner talking. I'd like to see more spin friendly pitches.
it would be nice to see more spinners come through. I mean, we do have quite a few off spinners. It's just, especially leg spinners.
Yeah.
I think it's not just a case of conditions; it's also a case of umpiring and not
calling wides and stuff.
not calling as many wides.
We've talked about that.
Yeah, we've mentioned that.
Now,
Anyway,
I'm
back
looking
to Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Yes. We spoke about their bowling. Their batting as well was very good. The way that they obviously they scored boundaries, but they didn't rely on just boundaries. The quick singles that they took, the ball. There was one. I think it was a single by Shan Masood. The ball went a metre outside the leg stump. Yeah, it was right there, but he was already halfway down the pitch before any of the England fielders came up to grab it. And by the time he was there, the single was taken by that point.
I think it's a very different innings if you get Shan Masood out on 45.
Yeah.
His anchor role in that innings allowed Shadab Khan to come in and play with that freedom, allowed Babar Azam to score quickly.
Yeah.
He never really looked like getting out, other than the chances that were missed.
But also, what this shows is the sort of evolution of this Pakistan team, 10, 15 years ago in the days of Inzamam, that sort of running would have resulted in a run out because of
Well, that's because of Inzi and the fact that I could run 100 meters faster than he could, and I'm not quick.
It shows the extraordinary fitness that they have, these players, but also it shows just how high quality they've got. That they were able to do that without a run out. There was everyone commentating yesterday was saying that there's going to be a run out soon, or it's coming, and it didn't.
And there was a few of these really cheeky singles, which even if they got a direct hit, they were pretty safely home. And but yes, I think Pakistan, they're a better bowling side than England, and then their batting side is kind of similar to England in that they rely on key contributions from key players. However, the difference between them and England's batting is that their key players are all on form at the moment.
Yeah.
All you need is, Babar Azam. Probably if you get Shan Masood and Babar Azam early, you're going to have a good day against Pakistan. It's going to be a struggle for them. Also, just in terms of their bowling, Naseem Shah, we talked about, he was a little bit expensive in this first innings, but it looked good. Judging by all their previous test matches in which I've seen him play and heard about him playing, basically the dynamic appears to be Mohammad Abbas and Shaheen Afridi clean up in the first innings, and then Naseem Shah usually takes 5 in the second innings.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see that. But yeah, it's a good Pakistan team.
It's a very good team. Anyway,
now I'm getting nervous because I've looked in our talking points and I can see yet again the heading quiz for Jacob.
Quiz time is upon us once again.
God, we've got about 10 minutes.
Yeah, we've spoken a lot about Test cricket, and we've mentioned Test cricket a lot. So I thought I'd give some love to.
That's basically all we talk about inside and outside of this podcast.
But I think that what I will do is I will talk about and give some love to some of the shorter forms of our game. So this quiz is: can you name the leading ODI run scorers of the 2000s?
Of the 2000s,
yeah. And there are 11 players who have made over 7,000 ODI runs in the 2000s. So from 2000 to 2010. Can you name all 11?
Oh, I couldn't. Probably not. Rohit Sharma wasn't around then. He made a lot.
It wasn't him. No.
You've got to assume Chris Gale.
Chris Gale's on there. 7,300.
You'd have to assume. Gilchrist.
Yes, he is actually number 11 on that list. 7,200.
Yeah, that was kind of later in his career, but Gilchrist was one. Jacques Callis?
Yeah, Callis is on there, 7,859.
Oh, that's 3. Yuvraj?
Yuvraj Singh is on there, yeah.
Yeah.
Just one spot above Adam Gilchrist, 7,249.
Virat?
No.
More 2010s.
Yeah.
He's definitely scored a ton of runs.
Oh, he scored
Sharma.
If this was the decade after that, 2010, 2020, he'd be on there.
I just couldn't remember when Virat debuted. This is tricky, actually.
It's very Asia sort of.
Inzamam.
No,
Inzi.
Nobody on there. It's a very subcontinent and Sri Lanka favoured list.
Sri Lanka got to be Dilshan. No, Sangakkara.
Yeah, Sangakkara's on there, 7,878.
And
then above one spot above Kumar Sangakkara is another Sri Lankan legend.
Angelo Matthews?
No, not Angelo Matthews.
Karunaratne?
No.
It's not Murali.
It's definitely not Murali.
Barely hold a bat, Murali. I don't know. Don't know that.
It's Sanath Jayasuriya.
Oh, Joyce.
Yeah.
Ah,
He
of
made
course.
8,305 ODI runs in that decade.
So
What about the
that's
top of the list? There's an Australian at the top of the list.
um,
Australian legend, captain,
Ponting.
Ricky Ponting. Yeah,
Yeah.
9,133 runs.
Matthew Hayden anywhere on there?
Hayden is actually in. He's actually in the top 20.
Damn.
But that's
Oh
5,847.
yeah. So then we've got four more, and I'm guessing large
Who's number
numbers of
two on
them
the
are
list?
Indians.
Number two on the list is an Indian legend of the same time period.
Oh well, how could I even forget Sachin?
Yeah, Sachin.
It's got to be Sachin. I forgot how good he was at ODIs. He's brilliant.
8,823 runs there. Yeah.
So Sachin. Um, Rahul Dravid.
Yeah, Rahul Dravid is on that list.
Yeah. Ganguly.
Ganguly again is in the top 20.
Gavaskar.
No, not Gavaskar. This is to be honest, it was probably after, more weighted towards the end of the 2000s. So it's after Gavaskar's time.
Okay. I'm missing two. Can you give
Yeah.
me nationalities?
So there's another Sri Lankan and a Pakistani.
I'm surprised AB de Villiers isn't on there.
Yeah. Well, this is probably after his time. This is before his time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sri Lankan, another Sri Lankan. Jai Wardner?
Yeah. Yeah. 7,676.
And a Pakistani. Yunus Khan?
He's number 3 on this list.
So it's not Inzi. I feel like I'm missing someone really obvious.
So his second name begins with Y.
It's not Wakar Yunus. He was a bowler, wasn't he?
No, not Wako Yunus.
I was like, what? No, I couldn't tell you.
It's Mohammed Yusuf.
Oh, yeah. I got all right. I got like 8.
You got, well, to be honest, obviously you had hints, but you got 10 out of 11. Pretty decent score.
Right, well, that's
Very good.
T20s next time I shall read up.
Although I think that list, if obviously that was for the decade before the last one. If we did it for 2010 to 2019, obviously there's not a single English player anywhere in the top 20 on that list. So how different would it look if it was the last decade? I think there'd be a lot of English players on there.
I could give you a couple. So maybe that's for next time. I'd put some money on. I put a good bit of money on people like Jason Roy, Joss Butler, Ben Stokes, maybe Johnny Bairstow, Owen Morgan, and then probably Virat. Rohit Sharma, I think, is now the leading run scorer in ODIs of all time.
I think he's a leading run scorer, and he also holds a record for highest ODI score ever.
Yeah, so he's a big hitter.
Yeah.
Big Rohit. MS Dhoni's probably on that list. He's a big boy.
Dhoni's actually in the top 20 on this list as well. But yeah,
he's probably in there on the 2010s. Okay, let's finish up then with star player, moment of the day, and word to describe the day.
All right. So star player for Pakistan for me, Shan Masood. He anchored that innings. Really got them to big scores. So yeah, him. For England, I mean, there's only one, and that's Ollie Pope, because everyone else had a very poor day. So yeah, Ollie Pope. Moment of the day has to be Mohamed Abbas taking that wicket of Ben Stokes, because not only was it probably the ball of the match and one of the best deliveries I've seen, it was also the moment where we thought, dear, this is now not going to be pretty for England because we don't have Ben Stokes to save us now. And to get Ben Stokes out on a duck for Pakistan is a huge moment because it means that you single-handedly neutralized England's single biggest attacking threat. So yeah, that's my moment of the day. Word to describe the day. I'm going to go with a English perspective on this and just say poor. There's no other word for it. It was just poor.
I'm going to agree with you on star players for the same reasons, because there's really no other. Maybe if you discount Shan Masood, you could go Shaheen Afridi for just a hostile spell of bowling. But that, Shan Masood today, Shan Masood's test match, as far as I'm concerned, he can have it. Moment of the day, Shan Masood's enormous six over well, not even mid on or mid off, just straight down the ground, huge, almost out the park. It was big.
It was
made me happy and sad in equal measure. And then words to describe the day. I'm not going to try Urdu again, but Pakistani. It was a Pakistani day. It was great for them. And in 5 minutes, we shall witness possibly the further destruction of our nation. So let's go.
So 5 minutes before day 3 begins of this first test match. So we shall leave you here. And we will be back tomorrow with the events of day 3. And we'll see then if it's again a heavily Pakistani weighted day. We'll see how bad England are at that point. But anyway, that's enough from us now. So thank you very much and goodbye.